This is the Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman. Brought to you by Decisions in Dentistry and the Academy of Dental CPAs. Whether it's taxes, investing, or planning wisely, Art is your guide to make your dental practice as profitable as possible. Here's your host, Dental CPA Art Wiederman.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman, CPA. Welcome to my podcast. I'm Art Wiederman. I'm a director in the dental division of Eide, which is a wonderful CPA firm that our dental group and our whole CPA firm merged with about 2.5 weeks ago in late July of 2020. And today I've got a real special episode for you today. One of the things that I'm trying to do in this series, especially now that we're heading into the second half of 2020, is to bring you people and resources that can really kind of resonate into, gee, these are some of the things that I want to do. And some of these resources are going to be private practice dentists that I've run across and met and have been very impressed with. And Dr. Sam Mahani, who's our guest today, is one of those dentists. And we're going to talk with Dr. Ahani today. He practices in Northern California. He's got a very successful dental practice that he manages and runs. We're going to talk to him about what he's done, when COVID came out, during the shutdown, and what he's been doing, because he was telling me that he's just really, practice is doing well. And then he's got a really, really cool problem that he has actually solved, having to do with relationships between specialists and general dentists. So we're going to get into that. Before we bring on Dr. Ahani, what we're going to do is give you some information today. If you want to get a hold of me in my office in Tustin, California, which is in Orange County, I'm at 657-279-3243. That's 657-279-3243. You can email me at artwiederman@gmail.com. That's Art, WIEDERMAN @gmail.com. We have this wonderful, wonderful partnership with Decisions in Dentistry magazine, and they have great, great clinical content and wonderful continuing education courses. Go to their website at www.decisionsindentistry.com. And on the first page, you'll see a link to the podcast. And if you want a complimentary 30-minute consultation with a member of the Academy of Dental CPAs, you can get that there, or just go onto our mailing list. Again, if you want to see our all of our podcasts, and we're approaching 100, I'm working on a really cool surprise for podcast number 100. I'm not going to tell you yet because I don't have it nailed down, but it's going to be really cool. You can go to our website, which is www.eidebailey, that's EIDEBAILLY.com. And all of our podcasts are there, as they are at the Decisions in Dentistry's website. And if you are looking for a dental-specific CPA anywhere in the United States, we've got you covered. Go to our website, which is www.adcpa.org. So let's go to our guest today. My guest is Dr. Sam Mahani. Dr. Ahani as I mentioned earlier, is a private practice dentist. His practice is located in Pacifica, California. And Dr. Ahani went and did his undergraduate work at San Francisco State University in computer information systems. And in 1996, he graduated from the University of Pacific Dental School, and one of the best dental schools in the country. I've met many, many people from there, and it's just a fine, fine institution. Did a residency in Washington, D.C., I believe he told me, at the VA in 1996. And the reason I brought Dr. Ahani on again is because he is not only a dentist who's run a dental practice, he's been involved in some other businesses, which I'm going to let him share with you. But he's got a lot of really great insight into what is going to help get you back to hopefully where you were after this horrible pandemic, after the opening of the offices. So Dr. Sam Mahani, welcome to the Art of Dental Finance.
I'm really excited to be here, Art. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. Now, you did. I do have to be nice to you because I can't say anything bad. Although we are about 500 miles away. I understand that you are a martial artist. Are you a black belt, brown belt,
No,
dental belt? How does that work?
I'm a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but just be nice to me anyway, please.
I will. I will try and do that. And Dr. Ahani's wife is also a dentist. She's a pediatric dentist, so it kind of runs in the family. So, Dr. Ahani, why don't you give us a little bit? I mentioned where you went to school and everything. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started in dentistry, and maybe a little bit about some of the businesses that you've operated in, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Just a quick correction. I graduated University of Pacific 1995.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just don't want all my classmates to get, when they hear this, to get all over me. So the story is interesting. I had an auto after graduating from college. My parents are in the glass business, and I opened my own glass shop. It was called Auto Glass Doctor, and worked there for a couple of years. You know, my hands were constantly black from the urethane that you used to put glass in. And one of my friends who was going to UOP at the time came to my shop, and he said, you know, what are you doing here? You know, I was making a lot of money, but obviously kind of unhappy. You know, one of the things I remember is that my hands were always black. And he came over one time and he said, why don't you come and take a look at UOP? He was going to school there. And I went into the lab, and I really liked, you know, the handwork that they were doing there. And kind of decided, you know, maybe this is for me, but I didn't have any of the prerequisites. I went home. I started talking to my parents about it, and they said, if you want to go, you know, just close up the shop and go tomorrow. So basically, I didn't close it up tomorrow because there was still cars in the shop. But you know, yeah, a week or two later, we just basically shut it down. I moved into with my cousin, who's now an oral surgeon. We moved in together to do this together. And we basically started taking the prerequisites and got into UOP together, and started in 1992, graduated in 95. Met my wife, who's now a pediatric dentist. In 97, we bought this small little 3-chair office that we found through our dental CPA, actually. And it was in foreclosure. And we turned it into if you can imagine, a pedo and a general practice in 3 chairs. Imagine that. And we that's how we kind of got started. And ever since then, we expanded it. And in 2010, we were able to buy a building, kind of overlooks the ocean. So you're really excited about that. And kind of the rest is history.
So how many, and you had mentioned you're working with a dental CPA. I know you had mentioned it's happens to be one of our ADCPA member firms in Northern California. My good friend, I'll mention his name, Hayden Warhan. I've known Hayden for, oh my goodness, Hayden was one of the first people that I met in dentistry. I met him at the CDA North Convention in the late 80s. And I just have such great respect for Thomas Dahl. And I met Sherman Dahl, who was one of their, Brent Thomas, Sherman Dahl. That's the two founding partners, and Hayden was right there. He's been there 35 years, and it's been a real good experience working with Hayden and his team.
Yeah, those guys are amazing, and we've basically, Hayden found us the practice. I mean, literally found us the practice. He called us up one day and said, "This practice is for foreclosure. I know that they were doing well in there before. Go take a look at it." He got involved in the nitty gritty of actually bidding it. We had no idea. I mean, I'm straight out of dental school. Like, how this stuff works. But the office was nice. It had beautiful. It had beautiful 3 chairs and a beautiful inside, and we bid on it and we got it. So yes, we owe a lot to Hayden that way, because he actually got us started there.
He's one of the most well-respected CPAs in the country, working with dentists. I'm glad you're in good hands. I'm glad to hear you're working with an ADCPA member. So let's start talking about what happened. So we started hearing about COVID. Probably we started hearing a little bit about it in China in December, and then January, and everybody started thinking, no big deal. It's not happening. It's not here. Did you see this thing coming early, or did it hit you like it hit everybody else on March 17th?
I didn't see this coming, but I have an assistant, Ivy, who has ties in China. And she
Ah,
was really closely monitoring this thing in China and what was happening with dental offices in China. So she slowly started to order a lot of PPE. And so she
smart lady.
yeah. Well, I mean, she ordered so much that at some point I got a call from my accountant, Hayden's bookkeeper, and she's like, Dr. Ahani, something's wrong here. You've spent triple the amount that you're spending in that you usually spend on PPE. And I said, let me see what's going on. So I get called up and I talked to Ivy and my wife. She's like, it's a good idea. So I gave her the go ahead. She started ordering stuff, hand sanitizer, masks. Really, really smart of her to get ahead of the curve like that. And we really stocked up. So I literally had no idea that this would happen, but she did, and we were lucky that she did.
Yeah, and I will tell you one of the biggest challenges, Dr. Ahani, that I had with my clients when I was talking to them, living the PPP and EIDL. Our listeners know that I've done, 35 webinars and 7 or 8 straight podcasts on that subject. But we were talking about this is the fact that dentists were struggling because they knew that when they opened, they were going to have all this equipment and supplies, and they couldn't get it. So you got to jump on it, and that also gives you a pipeline going forward, right?
That's true, but also remember this: at the time, they're saying to everybody that the hospitals don't have PPE, they don't have N95
Right.
masks. Meanwhile, we're sitting on a bunch of masks and stuff, so I couldn't really just sit on it like that. So we kept ordering. So like Ivy was ordering these things for like 70 cents a mask or something. When we kept ordering them, we were buying them at like $5 a mask.
Wow.
But then I could turn around and I donated a bunch of the masks to my friends and nurses. Actually, some patients who were nurses, they would put stuff on things. So we just turned around and donated a bunch of the things because I knew that, supply would catch up the demand on this. I didn't know when, but I knew it would. It would be more expensive, but it would. So I was able to actually donate a bunch of that stuff, which I was really happy to be able to do. And
God bless you for doing that. I'm sure you helped a lot of people because it was really touch and go for a couple of months. Still is in some places in the country. So, okay, so we get to March 16th, March 17th. CDA, ADA come out with a on their website strongly recommending that dental offices shut down for everything except emergency care. And I'm assuming you kind of did that like the rest of the world did, or what'd you do?
I dragged my feet a little bit just to see where it would land, and then when they put the shelter in place, I couldn't really tell the team to let's keep working.
Right.
So basically, once the shelter in place was placed, I just told them shut it down right now. So we started to reschedule patients, and we only rescheduled them like 1 week at a time to start.
Right.
So that's how it all kind of started. It was like dragging our feet a little bit, and then suddenly like, okay, well, this is real. Okay, everybody, just shut it down.
So did you reschedule people for let's say end of April? Did you start calling end of March? Did you start calling people and saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and reschedule you? We should maybe June 1st or something, or what did you do with that?
We were scheduling literally a week at a time. So we would take next week's patient and schedule them whenever we could, out. The reason was we didn't know how long this was going to last. So I didn't want to suddenly, because everything was so fluid at the time. I didn't want to have say, okay, now you can go back to work. And now we've rescheduled 3 weeks or a month's worth of patients and have to try to get them back in. So we started them at just a week at a time. And then near the end where it was just dragging on, we started to do 2 weeks at a time. So our schedule was kind of full the whole time. Obviously, patients, we were sending emails and stuff. They knew that we weren't going to be able to see them because unless it's an emergency, we weren't supposed to. So they kind of knew that they were canceled. So we didn't. In other words, I think it's a bad idea to schedule them out too far because you don't know, and they might not want to come in if you schedule them out too far. So that's how we did it.
So when did you open up? When did you go back into practicing?
We started mid-May. We started, mid-May. That's right.
All right. And so did you, I mean, I had some doctors that did what they called a soft opening and less hygiene and a lighter doctor schedule. What did you do?
So mid-May, okay, so here's a few of the issues, and I'm sure everybody else had them. Actually, we were never closed. Okay, there was somebody always in the office answering calls, one person, and then one of our doctors lives very close to the office, so he would come in with one assistant and see emergency patients. Emergencies, everything from like my temp fell out, because at this point they're in temps for a long time, to extractions and those kind of things. So we never shut down completely. The front desk never shut down. So they were always there, either rescheduling or taking care of patients. And we did do video calls, and we would send patients emails. So we had to keep everybody kind of together at this time. Patients, team members with Zoom calls, that kind of stuff. Come mid-May, not everybody's really, shelter in place was still in place, but I knew that if we didn't get the office rolling somehow, this anxiety would just get kind of worse and worse. So what we did was we didn't have any assistants that were willing to work. So I actually had to call one of them up, one of the ones who was like least resistant, because, remember, they were getting PPP, so it doesn't really make any difference if you're working or not. So I had to basically give him a $3,000 bonus to work those 2 weeks.
Okay.
And he accepted it. And we had to do that a couple of times, because the people who were in the office were getting paid and the people who were out of the office were getting paid. Wasn't really fair.
Right.
So we had to actually, even though there's no production, no collection, it put us in a position where we had to kind of bonus out the people who were in the office, but felt it was worth it because it was just gave continuity to the business.
They didn't want to come out. They were afraid of COVID. They were making more money on unemployment, maybe a little bit of both.
I think it's a little bit of both. In my case, though, I think my team would, my team is, they're so great that it actually was, fear of catching it.
Right.
So, and by being open to that, like, just so your question was, how did we start?
Yeah.
We opened up the office. We were seeing 6-7 patients per provider, and it was one hygienist, one assistant, and one doctor. And mostly what we were doing is and one front desk. And mainly what we were doing was catching up. People need cementations and stuff. So we were just bringing those people in and catching up. But it did also help that, people saw that, nobody got sick. Everybody was okay at the end of those 2 weeks. So it did make it easier for us to get back. During that period, and even a little bit before that, we started doing trainings on how to, actually, I should say, a week or two before that, we started doing in-person trainings also. So just being in the office, being in the atmosphere, being together helped with the anxiety, I think so.
So it was interesting because a lot of my doctors, they weren't scheduling every week, but the good news about you scheduling every week, because obviously you had to call people and reschedule them when you weren't allowed to be open, which gives you more touches of the patients, if you will. That was probably good.
That's right.
I would think that was good. And so your schedule was a little lighter getting going in the first 2 weeks, maybe?
Yes, very much lighter, about a quarter of what we normally do, or maybe even less the first 2 weeks.
We're now at the, we're middle of August now. Tell me how you ramped this practice up. What are the things that you did? What did you do with the schedule? And talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So one of the things is that, you can't have multiple people, multiple patients being seen by one provider. That's one issue. Providers need more time in between patients. So that's another issue. So basically what we did was, plus the other stuff, like, we have pedo practice, so parents can't come in. There's a lot of stuff that goes on along with, working here. So what we did was we basically gave everybody an hour and 15 minutes per patient. And we extended the schedule to be like a 10-hour schedule. So they could see at least 8 or 9 patients in a day if we had the patients. They were getting paid overtime. So it was kind of like, I thought of it as, it's okay, it's hazard pay. Plus we got all this PPP money that we, that we should use. And interestingly, what happened was that, we ultimately ended up doing a lot of production in those first 2 months for a variety of reasons. I think one is patients didn't want to come in multiple times. So they were actually willing to, do a bunch of work in one sitting, more than before, even if it meant they had to pay a little extra. Our doctors had more time because they're in there for, they had more assistants at their disposal, and also that had hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes per appointment. So they was able to do more work in each sitting. And it all actually turned out to work pretty well. Let me see, is there anything else? I mean, but we did have all the PPE and all those things. I had ordered a bunch of suction units and surgical filtration units that came sometime in the I think June. So we were able to we felt it made the staff and the patients feel a lot more comfortable that we were so proactive. And that's why we were able to kind of ramp up like that. And we would keep the patients in the loop too on all that stuff.
So tell me about the verbal skills that you were using, both with your team and with your patients. Let's start with your team. So, because I have preached, Dr. Ahani, that leadership is so critical right now. And I've got a lot of doctors that I've talked to that they need to step up to the plate. So what were some of the first things you told your team about this? Was it a positive message? Was it a realistic message? What were you telling them?
Well, look, let me just start out by saying that, my wife and I are sitting every day at home. These are those initial Zoom visits with the Zoom conversations with the team, right? We're watching these numbers rise. We know we've got to go back to work at some point. So we're both nervous and anxious about what's going to happen. But we have to put up a really solid front for the team. And what that means is that you have to make the team believe that everything is going to be okay, even though you're anxious. And right. So the funny comment that I made to the team was, I think it was the second Zoom meeting, kind of close to starting the trainings and stuff. And I said, "Hey, everybody, how are you?" And they said, "Oh, we're all fine." And I said, "Does anybody here know how to do anything else besides dentistry?" And they all started to kind of laugh and kind of shake their heads. No, I'm like, us either. So basically, if you know how to do anything else, this might be a good time. But if you don't know how to do anything else, it's time to start figuring this out and go back to work. And everybody just kind of laughed a little bit, but then realized, yeah, that's kind of it. We don't know how to do anything else. So I think that helped a lot. The other thing that I told the team that might be of benefit to your listeners is that I told them, listen, when we go back to work, it's not like patients are coming here to be seen at the time of COVID. They're still coming here for good customer service, to be taken care of well, to be spoken to well. It doesn't matter if you're hot. It doesn't matter if you can't breathe, out of your N95. We've got to patients are still number one, and we still got to, make them feel welcome and happy. And actually, I think that helped a lot to put it in perspective, because a lot of places I go, I noticed that, people are down. It's kind of like an excuse not to have good customer service right now. That's kind of what I feel like. I don't blame them. It's hard to breathe in those masks. It's oftentimes procedures have changed, but you still have to give good customer service. So those are the two things that I talk to the staff about.
Yeah, and the like I say, the leadership is so important, even now as we're coming out of this. So you had a lot of pent up demand. You have a good sized practice, as you've shared with me, and you had hundreds and hundreds of people. So first couple of months coming out of the gate, you were, after you ramped up, you were doing better, right?
Yeah, we did about 20% more than is like an average month in these last 2 months, in July and August. But I'm still trying to figure out why, but I think it has something to do with all the pent up demand. Even though we're not seeing as many patients, we're able to take time and talk to the patients, and we have more time with the patients. So patients are more willing to do more work in one visit because they don't want to come back as often. So that could be a talking point that you have with patients. We'd like to do all this at once. Are you willing? So I think that helps a lot with production. Collections is still lagging, obviously, because
right.
By the time you start to collect, it takes a few months. But production has been really, really good. August, I can feel it slowing down a little bit, and so we'll have to. I'm really interested to see what happens in August.
I think August is an interesting month when there's not a pandemic, because a lot of people go on vacation. And I have almost 200 followers on my Instagram page. Arthur Wiederman, I think, is my Instagram page if you want to come follow me. And it's nothing terribly exciting, but my youngest son, Forrest, made me start an Instagram page. He said, Dad, you're the only human being I know that doesn't do social media. You're going to do this. And I'm seeing people that are going, they're not taking cruises. They're not getting on airplanes and going to Europe, but they're going to national parks and they're going boating and they're doing stuff. So that could be part of it. And so one of the things I want you to talk about is, have you been talking to your patients about the connection between healthy mouths and COVID and the immune system? Have you been getting into that conversation?
No, we have not actually gotten into that conversation with them. There's so much going on in each visit with all the, put your mask on, take your mask off, come here, let me take your, there's not a lot of conversing that needs to be done, because our actions are showing them that, what needs to be done. As far as the connection between COVID and overall health, I mean, I think everybody kind of understands that, but we haven't been talking to them about oral health and COVID, which is not a bad idea, probably.
No, that's what we've been talking to some folks about doing that. So your hygiene department, again, did you make longer hygiene appointments for each patient?
That's right. Hour and 15 minutes. They usually get done in about 45 to 50 minutes. Doctor does the exam. They have about 20 minutes to clean up and spray and, fog. And remember that everybody, whatever you're doing, patients are seeing it. If you for example, we try not to put two patients next to each other in two chairs next to each other. We try to put like an empty chair in the middle. So, people try to notice these, what you're doing, especially now they're watching everybody. So if you go to the waiting room and, for example, hug one of your, cousin that came to the, for cleaning, they're watching you.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to be, really, really careful. As far as the hygiene department, we bought those big air vacuums. I think that made the made, I don't know. I think they are effective, and also it made them feel comfortable, and the patients feel more comfortable. For the first month and a half, we didn't actually do any ultrasonics, but asking them to do hygiene without ultrasonics is with all that stuff on and stuff is pretty hard.
That's tough. Yeah,
it's tough. When the machines came, we started to use the ultrasonics and went to the 10-hour days. It's kind of working out okay. They're working longer days, but it's a slower pace. So nobody's complaining so far. So we'll talk later about that.
Well, they probably like the overtime, and the unemployment did run out on the 31st of July. They're talking at this moment about increasing it, but it's not going to be the $600 a week. I can almost guarantee you that from the things that I've read. So what were some of the best moves you made opening your office up? Some of the real, just say, boy, I'm really glad I did this, or boy, I'm really glad I did that.
I'll tell you, one thing is, when some stuff like this happen, a lot of not just dentists, but business people in general, they try to throttle back and figure out how to spend less money. It's kind of like a restaurant that doesn't have any business. So they start to serve yesterday's food today. And it's like it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy after a while. You really during this time, we hired 2 people because I knew we'd have some people we need somebody to, go after hygiene for those next months where we don't have hygiene. We need more help with that. We hired one more assistant. We were short anyway, but we hired one more assistant to help with the cleaning and all that stuff. One thing I'm glad is that we ordered all those, because that equipment wasn't cheap. It was I don't know, the ones I got were very expensive, and they were sold out they didn't come for 6 weeks. So we ordered them very early on. I'm pretty happy. My brother was kind of my brother, the endodontist, was the one who said, let's just pull the trigger and buy these. And by having them, it just makes everybody feel better. So one of the things is, don't throttle back. This is not the time to throttle back. That's kind of what the PPP and the EIDL and all that stuff, that's why it comes in handy, is because you can do a little more and not less. So I'm glad I didn't throttle back and try to lay people off and try to bring overhead down as much as I could. So I think that's one of the things is, when something like this happens, you can't be afraid to spend money on it. And that's what the government money was for. So that's how we spent it.
I think that's a great point. One of the things that I've learned, I've probably mentioned this on this podcast, folks, is I don't remember who it was. It was a business owner or another CPA friend of mine who told me, said, Arthur, the day you stop marketing your business and the day you stop trying to grow your business is the day your business starts to die. Does that seem reasonable to you?
It's totally true. If you're seeing the day where you're looking to see if you have to, like they raise the rent $1,000 and it's going to crush your business, that's the time that you should have probably closed it down already. So it's if you're starting to penny pinch because you have to, then that's a clear sign that you should be thinking about maybe the opposite. Maybe you need to expand.
And you're also sending a message to your team that, well, I'm pulling back and maybe we're not going to make it and maybe they should look for another job or something like that. Not that it's easy to find jobs.
Home. Some dentists, like they don't have patients for half a day and they send the team home. And so, all that's telling them is that we don't have enough work for you. Right. And then you lose one and you save $300 on that day or $200, $300, you lose one and then you end up spending $25,000 training somebody else, and maybe they're as good as the other one, and maybe they aren't. They probably continue to lose you money. I know it's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, but when things like this happen, you can't be afraid to throw some money, even though you're not sure if it's like, spending all that money on the air filtrations. I was like, are you sure? Are we serious? Like, we're going to buy a bunch of equipment right now. We have no idea what's happening. There's not anything in the schedule, but I always go towards let's just do it. Because in the long run, losing your business is way worse than, whatever money you spend on the equipment and, the payroll and those kind of things.
Well, we have a saying on our podcast that failure is not an option. And obviously you're one of my biggest cheerleaders for that. So in talking to the patients, this is something I'd love to get your take on. Talking to the patients, do you tell the patients, okay, here's all the things we've done to make sure you're safe, or do you show them the machines, or what have you been doing to reassure patients, and how have they been? Have they been apprehensive about the safety of your office?
The patients come in a variety of packages. Some of them are not afraid at all. It couldn't be less on their mind. Some of them moderately, they want to see that you're taking precautions, and that's by and large, that's where they're at, the ones that are coming in. And the other ones are just staying at home and they will not budge, and they're scared to death of getting COVID. As I told you, all along we've been emailing patients, so we've been telling them about kind of everything that we're doing, even the struggles that we have, those things we were telling them. When we get the new protocols in place, we sent one email. When we got the equipment in place, we sent another email with like pictures. I mean, Art, if you've seen one of those suction things, you can't really miss it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a giant elephant in the middle of the room. And then we have those splash guards that are in front of the front of the reception area. I mean, you really can't miss those things. So it's not so much talking to the patients, but it's very obvious. We set up a outdoor seating area for the patients. We were lucky enough that we have, an area where we can do that. They come in, they get their temperature taken. I mean, you don't really have to say a lot. Everything is different. And, we're all wearing masks. We're all wearing, this, that, and the other thing. So there's not a lot to say. They notice it. But on the other hand, if you mess up, they notice it too. So you have to be you really have to be diligent about staying on the team and making sure that, even though it's not a big deal to you, like the example I was using happened in the office. One of our assistant's cousins came for a cleaning, and obviously she went and gave them a hug. We had to kind of tell her, hey, that doesn't look good to the other team members and everybody else. So right. You just she's like, oh my God, yeah. So,
well, we don't think about that sometimes. Now, your wife is a pediatric dentist, and she practices in the same facility, correct?
She does, yeah. So it's
so how is that working with parents and kids? I mean, because we have pediatric dentists that listen to this podcast, and we also have most of our clients take children in their practices. How has that changed?
Yeah, she's seeing far fewer patients, obviously, because pedo is just is basically a numbers,
yep.
right?
Yep.
So she's seeing far less patients, but she's working an extra day a week. So that's making up for it, as if you're wondering about the production piece. But listen, Art, a lot of people should remember this. Kids are home now. So if you have trouble, and parents are home, so if you have trouble filling your midday things, that's maybe a good direction to go. Call them and bring the kids in, in the middle of the day. So whereas before, everything in pedo happens from like 3 to 6, 7, right? Because the kids are getting out of school. Right now, they're home in the middle of the day. They're kind of bored, with nothing to do. So getting kids to come in is actually a little easier now than it used to be. So that's something to think about.
It's interesting. I have a large pediatric dental practice that I've been consulting with for 30, 35 years. And I get involved, and we were doing twice a year meetings and all this stuff. And that was one of the biggest issues that we had, was that in a lot of counties, the school district will not let you pull the kids out of school. I don't know how it is up there, but and the parents don't want to pull the kids out of school. So you can't just say, oh, by the way, I'm going to offer you a job, but you can only work from 3 to 6. That's hard to find people, and it's very hard to find people. I mean, it was before the pandemic. It's now it just depends on where you are. But that was one of the biggest issues in pedo, was you couldn't find anybody. You find people who would work, and you couldn't get parents to get the kids in, no matter what you did. And that's the same. That's what your wife struggles. But now that everybody is off school, or they're doing virtual school, which is less time, starting soon, that's an advantage for my pediatric dentist, right?
That's right. That is. So how we used to handle it, I'm sure most of the pedodontists do the same thing, but it's worth a mention. Even before, if you won't pull your kid out of school to come and get a cleaning, maybe, those have to be between 3 and 7. By the way, we're open till 7 a lot of times, and most days. But you will pull a kid to come out and do fillings and, extractions and those kind of things. So our standard policy in the office is, all the cleaning, all the fillings and all the extractions and all the work has to be done in the morning. And it's good for the kids, and it's, because they're not tired, exhausted after school. And it's also good for the practice. That's how we fill the morning. So, and then all the hygiene we try to do between. There's exceptions, but for the most part, we try to stick to that.
Well, you've given a lot of really good tips. I just love to have my listeners hear somebody who's in the trenches and doing everything that they need to do to get back. What are you doing? Like, I know, in fact, one of the people that referred you to me was my good friend Joanne Tanner, and her podcast came out, and she was just raving about you. So what are some of the things you're doing, like for the fourth quarter? We're getting down to Christmas, and maybe people are not scheduling as much. Are you doing anything in that regards?
So Joanne turned me on to the fact that, hey, make sure you go look at your September, October, November schedule. And I immediately the light went off, and I sent this, a message to my, because we're on a group text with all my classmates from class of 95 in UOP. Shout out.
You're allowed.
I'm telling you, we literally have sent 10,000 texts to each other in the last 2-3 months. No joke. And so I said, hey guys, go check your September, October, November schedules and get back to me. And they're all like, oh no. So yeah, I am concerned. We did hire that extra person, and so we have availability for somebody to work on hygiene. We do like the idea of bringing patients in, because a lot of them are allowed, twice a year cleanings on their insurance benefits. We do like that idea. However, that's not how we make production. I mean, I could go into how we calculate production as a thing of as a part of hygiene, but I won't go into that. But the thing is, if you're bringing in 3 and 4 month recall patients, they don't have any work to do. You're getting some hygiene production, and it's good for the patients. That's good. But you really need patients who haven't been in for a while to get that. So reactivating patients, the way Joanne was talking about on your podcast, that's a great idea. Giving it incentives for them to come in, that's an amazing idea. I've actually planned to double and triple my marketing efforts during these.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so we've never actually done any Google ads to any great extent at that time. So I've created a new website, and I'm planning to spend a good bit of marketing money on Google ads. We also do Chris Ad flyers. I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Ad. Been working with them almost as long as Hayden. We do those flyers, and also, the reactivating the patients and reactivating, direct mail, whatever I can do. So, but I do plan to, again, my philosophy is if you have a problem, try throwing some money at it and see if it sticks. So this is what I'm trying to do, to get to make sure that September, October, November, December should be okay. I think we're back on track in December, unless God forbid, something happens, we get shut down again or something like that. But I think we're okay in December. So I'm trying to just pull in new patients, however I have to make up for any lack. So I'm actually very concerned, but also super interested to see what happens in those months. It tells a lot about the practice to see what happens, when something like this happens, right?
Well, I like the way you're thinking, Dr. Ahani. I really do, because the ADA took a survey, and 55% of dentists said that they're going to bring themselves back to profitability by cutting overhead. And I've been preaching for 36 years that that's not the way you make money in dentistry. You make money in dentistry by increasing your production and your production per visit and your production per hour and making sure patients come in, which are all the things that I'm sure that you do. I want to change gears here with you, because you've got a very intriguing project that you've taken on. And I, when I heard about it, I thought, wow, this is a great subject, and I want to share it with everybody. Is obviously the relationship between the general dentist and the specialist and the referral. So, Dr. Ahani, talk a little bit about how you got into this whole project, and maybe what's the issues that you're finding, and then we can talk about maybe some of the solution that you've created.
It could be that I'm just a glutton for punishment, Art. So
you and me both.
We'll talk about that. Okay, so as I said, my wife's a pediatric dentist. My brother's an endodontist. My cousin's an oral surgeon. My brother-in-law's a dentist. Everybody. So we have a lot of dentists and specialists in the family, right? So I refer all my endo to my brother, for example. And even though, it's my brother, and I can get him at a drop of a hat and send him a text, or from people a text, we still saw a lot of people drop off as they're being referred to his office. So, and, for years, I've been basically, every time I hand a referral to a patient, I think all GPs, all will recognize this thought. As soon as, like, the patient would come in, they need a lot of work, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. And then there was this one root canal that I can't do. And then as I'm handing this referral to the patient, I'm thinking to myself, God, I hope I see you again. And then I go to the front desk and say, hey, Jeanette, can you make sure that we see Mr. Smith again? He needs a lot of work. And then she'll put a little Post-it somewhere. And then we just sit and wait for the final report to come. And obviously, my brother's office doesn't know that the patient's been referred. We did email some referrals sometimes. My brother's office basically doesn't know that the patients have been referred. And so the patients never go, and they never make it back to us. So it's a tracking these referrals better is a win-win for everybody: the patients, the specialists, and the GPs. On a side note, what really triggered it was I was having a conversation with a pretty well-known malpractice attorney, and I was explaining to him what project that we were thinking about doing. And he said that, Sam, about half of all litigations in dentistry come from this mismanagement of specialist GP patient communication. So he was really into it. So when he said that, then I thought this is a good project, and we've been working on it ever since.
So you shared a statistic with me that there's a certain, I don't know if this was in your practice or just nationwide, is the percentage of referrals that you make that never make it to the specialist.
Yeah. In my practice, the number is somewhere around 30 to 40%.
Wow.
If you look online, well, it depends on the specialty, right? I mean, if you give 10 perio referrals out, how many of them go, you think,
right.
Art? Right?
I'm going to guess half, maybe, if you're lucky.
There you go. If you're lucky. What about ortho?
Yeah.
Right. What if somebody needs 4 or 5 implants, you refer them to an oral surgeon. Out of 10, how many go? It's really not that hard to understand this. But if the oral surgeon was to call them right after they left the office and say, you've been referred by Dr. Ahani, we'd like to schedule a consult with you, 20 or 30% of the time more, they're likely to go. It's not really rocket science. It's just basically good customer service, a nicer handoff, and better communication between the specialist and the general dentist and the patient. And if you look nationwide, there's not really dental referral numbers, but we found a lot of articles on medical referrals, and no reason to think that that's any different. And they range from 40% don't go to 65% don't go for the referral. So it's a big number. It's actually a huge problem, and for GPs and specialists. And I thought it was worth solving. And I think
let's do some simple math. Let's say that you diagnose that a patient needs 4 implants. Okay, yep. a quadrant of implants. Yep. And again, Northern California fees, I'm obviously not as familiar as Southern, but I'm guessing let's just use $2,500 a tooth, depending if there's an abutment and things like that, for the implant for the periodontist or the oral surgeon, right? Is that fair numbers?
It's probably an average number, yeah.
Yeah, so that's $10,000 for the specialist, and then you're going to come back and you're going to put in the implant crown, which for you, because most dentists charge more for an implant crown than they do for a traditional non-implant crown. That might be $6,000-$7,000 for you, right?
It's closer to, I would say $6,000-$7,000. Yeah.
So we got just with that one case, we've got 16, 17, maybe as much as $20,000 at play here. And if you're telling me that 30% or more don't do this, that's interesting. So tell me you have a solution. And before Doctor has created an app called Refera. Did I get that right?
That's right. It's a play on the word referral.
Yeah. I want to be real clear before we start talking about this. I do not take any kind of fees from anybody to promote products. I only promote things that I think are going to help my listeners and my dentists and my CPA practice on a podcast. So this is not about I'm doing a referral situation here. I was so intrigued by this. 36 years of dentistry, I'd never heard of it. So I want to learn more about it. So tell me how does it work? How does your app work?
So basically it's you sign on to the site. And, mostly on the GP front, they hit the create referral button. And immediately on the other end, the specialist sees it on their dashboard. They pick up the phone or text the patient or however they usually communicate with patients. And they call the patient, they schedule them. When they schedule them, they click a little button that says scheduled on their dashboard. And that shows up on our site. As an outgoing referral, we see that patient has been scheduled. If it sits there and that hasn't been scheduled, that's also noted. Any notes that those guys put into the schedule, we see on this site. So that the problem that's solving is, hey, I don't have to call now to find out where this referral is at. They can also communicate with the other office via a chat, which means you just leave a message and they answer you. So a lot of times it's like, can you send me the insurance info for so-and-so? Although the software does allow you to input all that information and send it too. And so at each stage, when the patient's complete, it's marked as complete. You upload your final report. Everything sits in one place. I think that's what, I created this mostly for GPs, right? So from the GP perspective, it's really great to have all our referrals in one spot where we can monitor them. We can see who's been scheduled, who needs to come back. The other day I clicked and there was we were short on, there was an empty spot in the chair. And there was a patient who had 2 implants placed who was ready for things. So I went on Refera. I said, and I told the team, hey guys, did you guys see this? They said, oh, they just came through. So she just gotten done yesterday. And so we called her up and brought her in for the implant crown. So it's not really that difficult. It's pretty simple. And the point I want to make on our software, which is different than others, is you can send a referral whether the person is on the network or not. The way we do that is we have a database of all the dentists in the country. You put their email address in if they're not on Refera, and we then will email them that referral. And they can click and they can be on the dashboard too. So it's got kind of this network effect that can happen. And in our area, 25 offices have signed up, about 100 offices have signed up 25 of them are using it daily, and we're just about to take it to market and start to get the word out on it a little bit more.
What kind of feedback are you getting from the dentists that are using it?
The ones that use it solid, they love it. The trouble is getting, changing the way like you do some stuff in the office.
The front office administrator,
is a little bit difficult because, they used to hand out a referral to a patient, just like, squiggle the patient's name and then maybe a phone number and click something or check something. And then they would give it to the patient thinking that that's the end of the referral, but that's not really the end. The end was that then the office calls and says, what's their insurance information? Can you upload their x-rays? Can you do this? Can you do that? So actually, our software saves a lot of time, although it does, it appears to the GPs that it's not saving time, but it's saving a lot of time because it just filling out that thing was not the thing. We also can do integrations, which basically uploads all the patient's information easily onto the software. So that does make it a lot easier.
And you mentioned liability, and I hadn't even thought about that. Do you have some examples that you can give where if a patient doesn't go to the specialist where there could be a lawsuit?
Yeah, I have a great one. Actually, it's not our case. I think this one.
Thank goodness it's not your case, right?
It's not my case. I wouldn't do that. No. But what happens is, okay. So for example, the dentist referred the kid to an orthodontist to do ortho. Midway through treatment, the orthodontist refers him back to the general dentist saying that he's got decay on 18 and 19 and to take care of it. The parent never goes. It's actually noted in the chart that the parent was given a referral back to the GP to get these taken care of. They never take care of it. Next thing you know, they take the bands off, and those two teeth are have to be extracted because they're blown. They're
rotted.
Yeah. So mom says, "I never got that referral," and the doctor says, "It's right here in the chart." And it's very easy to see in an ortho office that they see 60 to 80 patients a day. 50 to 80. I don't know what the number is, but it's astronomical.
That's about right. Yeah. In a very busy ortho office, 60 to 80 is not unusual. It's
not hard to understand that, the doctor told the assistant, please give him a referral back for this, but the assistant never did. That's easy to see. So with our system, basically, if you refer them back, you could do a refer back to the original office, and the patient gets text and email saying that you've been referred back, please go. The other office sees it on the other side, hopefully calls the patient and schedules it. That's one example. The other one that everyone's familiar with is when you check mark those little marks on that referral slip, our system prompts you to make sure that those tooth numbers are correct, and you have to certify that like with the check mark, and then you hit. So the wrong tooth numbers on those lab slips, on the referral slips, is another big deal. I have a story on that one too, but it's too long.
Go ahead. Go ahead and tell it.
You want to tell that one? Okay. So we, not us, but we refer, GP refers to an endodontist for 3 and 4 for root canals and evaluation. So it goes to the endodontist. The endodontist determines that number 3 can be saved. So he does the root canal number 3. Number 4, though, is too far gone and needs to go to an oral surgeon. So she sends the referral now to the oral surgeon, marks 3 and 4 on the referral slip. It goes to the oral surgeon. The oral surgeon sees their initial referral that says, please evaluate, looks at the pre-op x-rays, which are from the GP, and doesn't realize that the root canal has been done on number 3 somehow, okay? And takes out both of those teeth.
Oh,
I know, but it seems difficult, but these guys are seeing 30 patients a day. It's not that hard to imagine,
No, to miss something. And the great thing is that with your app, everything is documented, right?
Everything is in one place, and it's all documented, and every note that's placed in there is, you can see it in the history in chronological order. I might be biased, but I think it's a pretty cool thing.
No, you look at, we're trying to generate production, and when there's a referral involved, this is not just a, 2-surface composite restoration. These are thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of dollars in case revenue, right?
These are your best patients. A lot of times they talk about hygiene and how keeping hygiene in the loop, right? You're supposed to pre-appoint every single hygiene patient, right? But this is kind of the same thing, isn't it? If you, Art, how many new patients does an average office get a month, do you think?
I'm going to say that the consultants teach that a single doctor producing out of about 4 operatories, we like, 12 to 18 new patients a month. That's what we like to see, maybe 20 at the most.
Okay, so let's say 15, for example.
Right.
And on average, how many do you suppose get referred out in a month? I mean, just take a wild guess. For my office, it was way more than I thought, by the way.
Out of 15, I'm going to say 20%, maybe 3 or 4.
No, overall in the office.
How many referrals? Oh, my goodness. It depends. In a busy office, I mean, I've had doctors, because I sell dental practices, and I'll ask, how many root canals, how many endo referrals do you make, how many perio? And I'll hear, oh my goodness, we probably make 10, 5 to 10 a week sometimes. I mean, you've got a busy office. It could be that high.
Okay, so let's say, let's pick a low number. Let's say they refer out 20 a week, 20 a month.
20 a month, 5 a week, yeah.
240 referrals that you keep track of a year. And if you take that length of 2 years, right, because that's kind of the window, isn't it, for like a referral maybe? And that's 400, 80 referrals you have to keep track of. How are we keeping track of these referrals?
Yeah, because the front office has nothing else to do but just keep track of the referrals. Right?
That's right.
Exactly.
So if you think about it, if even 30% of those are getting lost, that's like 3 months worth of new patients. 4 months worth of patients.
Oh yeah. So let's tell the listeners kind of how this works. First of all, what's the website?
It's www.refera.com.
Okay. And so they go on there. So do they pay for this? Is it a monthly fee? Is it by patient? How does that work?
So we have one of the things we have to figure out is that how do we make it so that dentists don't mind having their specialists get this software, and specialists don't mind asking their GPs to get it. So the money conversation is tough. So the solution we came up with is we have a very powerful version for GPs. GPs can do virtually everything on the software for free, okay? And we have a very powerful version for specialists for free also. So you can basically use this thing for free, and it's still a way better system than you ever had before. For the GP part, we charge for integration with like your Dentrix and stuff, $99 a month. It does make things a lot easier, but it's not a deal breaker. It saves you some time and it makes it a lot better, but you don't have to have it. On the specialist side, we charge them $199 a month for the reporting, which is really valuable to them because now they can see who sent them how many, in what time frame, how fast the front office is scheduling those patients. It's a lot of information that they never had before. And also, on the free version, we don't surface the patient's contact information because our value prop is that if you call these patients, they will 30% more will come. So if you don't think that's true, you don't have to call the patient first. Just wait for the patient to call you, just like you did before, because they got the text and the email. But for $200 a month, you get that contact information, and it's virtually a no-brainer, I think.
Well, and I would think that the specialists who want you to refer would be jumping all over this thing.
The specialists like it, and the GPs like it, and it's actually pretty great for both. So, and the way we have it set up, the way that networking is, the way that you add people to your network, that kind of stuff is really, really cool. They are all over it. It's just a way of, it's a change. The reason I want to talk about this, in person on podcasts and things is because you just have to get people to recognize the problem. It's actually a pretty big problem, bigger problem that a lot of things you're trying to solve in your practice right now.
Wow. And it's, again, I mean, there's all kinds of things in a dental office and a dental business. And especially during these very, very challenging times that we're in, this is another way to, generate revenues in your practice. And, so it's, so you say you work with about 100 offices right now nationwide?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And you say they've seen increases and more, fluidity, and the patients are coming out. Now, one more question, because we're running this goes so fast. I'll tell you, it's so much fun, but it goes so fast. Who's the one? So, the GP makes the referral to the specialist. All right. And then we don't hear. What do you recommend, that they wait 2 or 3 days to schedule, or how does that work? And then who makes the call? Because you don't want to get a call from the GP and the specialist for the patient, because that's a little overkill, isn't it?
So the GP refers them out. The patient gets a text and email that gives them the information for the referring office. Says you've been referred to Dr. So-and-so. And then the specialist sees it on their dashboard on the other side, and they call. We don't recommend that they wait. It's kind of up to them. But what happens is, like we literally sometimes see, because we have a timestamp, right? When the referral was created, and then when the patient was scheduled. Sometimes it's like 10 minutes, 12 minutes apart. And it's because the specialist understands that they need to call these patients while, it's fresh in their mind.
While the iron is hot. Yep.
Yeah, they call. And then sometimes they schedule them within, 10 or 12 minutes. And I swear to God, sometimes I'm like, this person still has to be at the general dentist's office. They probably didn't even leave yet.
Right. But that shows people like being on the cutting edge. Now, you also mentioned a case where your orthodontist found 18 and 19 was a problem, and they needed to send him back to the GP, and that didn't happen. So does it work the same way, that the specialist would put in the referral, and then the general dentist would then go ahead and call the patient?
It's exactly the same way. So basically, the referral is there. There's a button that says refer back, and the specialist clicks the button, so all the patient's information is already in there, and just types in what the patient needs to have done. The patient gets a text and an email, says that you've been referred back to your general dentist. So there's no question anymore that, if it was done or it wasn't done or whatever. This general dentist then sees it on their side in their needs action, and then they call and schedule the patient.
That's fantastic. So one more time, and we're coming to about the end of our time here. One more time. So the website is www.refera.com. Is that correct?
That's correct. And if anybody wants to contact me directly,
go ahead and give out your contact information, please.
Yeah, it's just sam@refera.com.
Okay, that's how we scheduled this podcast. So there you go. And just give him an email. Again, Doctor, you just intrigued me when we talked, and when Joanne was talking about you, and I'm thrilled that you were able to come on today. Any final comments about any advice? I mean, you run a big practice between you and your wife. We're not going to give out your numbers, of course, but it's a very successful practice. Any last tips that you can give to our doctors for going forward to keep the momentum going?
I want to give this advice, and this is something that I struggle with every day, is you really have to make sure that you take care of yourself. COVID will come, COVID will go, production will come, production will go. You need to make sure that, you're taking care of yourself so that you can take care of your office, so you can take care of your family. Dentistry is not an easy business. I'm 54 now. I've been in this for, I don't know, a long time. I don't know, 27 years. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I really want to tell people is that you really, even though these are hard times or whatever, don't forget, you have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of everybody else in your practice.
That's great advice. So, Dr. Sam Mahani, thank you so much for your wisdom today, helping our doctors. I hope, doctors, that you'll listen to some of the tips that Doctor gave as far as things to be doing with your patients. And the thing I love the best that you said today was you need to spend money during this time. It's like I say, marketing people say you need to spend more money marketing when the times are tough. And this solution that you have for the relationship between the specialist and the general dentist sounds really fascinating. I'm going to certainly mention it to some of my clients. So, Dr. Ahani, thank you so much. Just hang on for a little bit. And as I wrap this up, again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We are exploding. I mean, we're just in, gaining newer and newer. I don't know if newer and newer is a word. More and more listeners. I get so excited about this every single week. If you want to give me a call, you have a question about anything that's going on in dentistry, any of the podcasts we've done, my number in my office is 657-279-3243. Email me at artwiederman@gmail.com. My email at the office, you can email me there too, is awiederman, WIEDERMAN at Eide Bailey, EIDEBAILLY.com. Go on to Decisions in Dentistry. Look at their great CE courses and their great content. Fantastic magazine. If you want a complimentary consultation with an Academy of Dental CPA member, that's where to go. And mark the box and we'll get you in touch with our member in your area. And again, if you're looking for a dental-specific CPA anywhere in the United States, www.adcpa.org. Dr. Sam Mahani, thank you so much for your time today and your wisdom and your expertise.
I appreciate it, Art. Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.
That is fun. And tell Hayden I said hi. And that is it, everyone, for this edition of the Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman, CPA. Stay strong and remember my saying, as I mentioned earlier today, 5 words: failure is not an option. You have worked way, way, way too hard to accomplish what you've accomplished in your practices, and we are not going to let a virus take that away from you. So everything that you can do to make your practice better, be proactive, be a leader. And thanks for listening. Please tell all your friends about the podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.